Greetings, petrolheads. Welcome back to Automation, the car company tycoon game. Before we get into the concepts that I'm gonna be presenting, between in the game years from 2017 to 2020, I want to show you a car that is made in 2016. It's by AMW. Remember, AMW is basically my quote-unquote main company that builds like everyday cars, but also sportier cars and occasionally supercars. And the difference, or the main selling point, why I think, or what makes AMW different from BMW and Mercedes and so on, is that our cars are lighter and more aerodynamic. We put more focus on the driving experience, and we try to make one very complex build, or a very simple build infotainment system that sort of works like a tablet with a touch screen and with big icons on it. So similar to what you get in a Tesla, actually, now that I think about it, that controls anything. What that means is that we have more space on the interior left, which is practical, and we save a lot of extra devices, which means we save a lot of weight. And so light and aerodynamic is what AMWs are, or is what it's where they're different from BMWs and Mercedes. And one extreme example of that is the AMW Python. It is a supercar. Let me just tell you that. And it is, you can think of it as a modern day reiteration of a Ferrari F40. Remember, what made the F40? It was a small car, first of all. It had a relatively small but high revving and heavily turbocharged engine. It had a big rear wing. It had pretty much one of the best gearboxes available at the time. It had massive rear tires. It had carbon fiber, and it had a really good top speed. So, and pretty much no interior and no driver assists whatsoever. So here's the exterior. It has pretty aggressive headlights here. Obviously today headlights are a lot different and a lot more complex in their shapings than they were in the 80s, but that's okay. Quad exhausts. Carbon fiber monocoque, excuse me, carbon fiber monocoque, carbon fiber panels, transverse engine mounting, double wishbone front suspension, pushrod rear suspension. Why not pushrod on both ends? Yes, that's hardly believable. It's not. Is there any car, any supercar currently in production that uses pushrods on both ends? I know that some are using pushrods on the rear end. Lamborghinis, for example, or Ferraris, or the Noble M600, I think, as well. But pushrods on the front? I'm not sure. In any case, it is rear-wheel drive. And you see here how small it is, 236 as far as the wheelbase goes. That's actually shorter than the F40's wheelbase, and the whole car is also shorter. Now for the engine. In the Ferrari it was a V8. Here it's an inline-4. It's a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4, and it makes 600 horsepower and revs up to 10,000 RPM. Yes, that's the engine you get in this thing. You see that there are a few slight reliability issues, although yellow is still, not terrible. once the bottom end of the valves go like deep orange or red, then it's getting really dangerous. Yellow is obviously not ideal, but not that bad yet. And you can see reliability is still at 69.9, even though with a lot of boost, 1.6 bars, and a lot of revs, and still reliability is decent. Economy is not, though. just to keep it short. We have a 7-speed double clutch gearbox, and again, sure, you're gonna be saying the Ferrari had a manual gearbox, and you know, it's a puristic car. This with its double clutch gearbox, you don't even shift for yourself. That may be correct, but let's get back to that in just a minute. Electric diff, 335 rear tires, 245s up front, carbon fiber rims. This is carbon fiber everything basically. Carbon ceramic brakes, 4 pistons front, 2 pistons rear. Really small diameter, because you see we have no brake fade whatsoever, and still really good braking distance, because, well, and here's the key thing, 884.2 kilograms. That's just a shade under 1,950 pounds. So it is really light. It is just incredibly light, this car. And we have an active wing so that we can reach high top speeds and also have some downforce for corners. But really, we have sports interior, which is nicer than in the F40, but still it's gonna be pretty plain and no entertainment, nothing at all. And driver assist, I was gonna go for no driver assist at all, but realistically speaking, because this is 2016 and for the last like at least 15, probably even 20 years, ABS has been mandatory on all new cars, and because AMW is a rather big manufacturer, all in all, we have to adhere to that. And also, I think ABS is the only driving assist that actually doesn't have any negative effect on the driving experience, because you only really notice it when, you know, when the tires would otherwise lock up, and it's a good thing. You get progressive springs, semi-active dampers, and passive sway bars. Here's where I made a compromise, because progressive springs are offering better drivability than the standard springs, which in turn, by their own merits, would give more sportiness though. And I decided that even with the progressive springs, the drivability is pretty low, so it's probably better to stick with these than with the standard springs, which would reduce drivability even further. Because this is, after all, a road car, and now we're getting back to, no, we're not getting back to the gearbox yet, because I'm gonna be showing off this thing's quarter-mile acceleration. Yeah, 9.76 seconds. If you think you can shift quickly enough yourself with a stick that you would get anywhere close to that without this car is pulling, then okay, maybe you can have a manual gearbox then. But honestly, and here's the thing again with the limited longitudinal grip in automation, we have 335mm rear tires, which are sports tires and with +10 quality. And we have an electric diff installed as well. And yet, we have 29.3% wheel spin. This also despite of the fact that this is mid-engine, so it has a lot of weight over the rear axle. In spite of all of those facts, it still makes so much wheel spin. And that just shouldn't be the case. If it made less wheel spin, the 0 to 100 would not be 2.7. It would be more along the lines of like 2.5, maybe even 2.4. And the top speed of 360 kilometers an hour is certainly like incredible. Because that's pretty much on par with the Noble M600, and that has a 4.4 liter twin-turbo V8 and 650 horsepower. And apart from that, it's higher than the 700 horsepower Lamborghini Aventador top speed. It's higher than any of the 3 hybrid hypercars top speed. It's faster than a Carrera GT, a McLaren SLR, faster than any Pagani Zonda. Not faster than the Huayra though. It's faster than well, a lot of supercars you can name, a 12C, a 650S, any Ferrari currently in production, or any Ferrari ever? No, the Enzo was a little bit faster still, I think. But apart from, yeah, you get the point. 360 kilometers an hour coming out of a 4-cylinder. And what this car is trying to prove is that downsizing can deliver some really extraordinary results if you downsize not just the engine but the entire car. Because what manufacturers these days are doing is downsizing the engines, but the cars mostly get bigger and bigger, and therefore, even if they use lighter materials, usually heavier because of more equipment, more technology that goes into each of them and whatnot. But if you go the other way and downsize not just the engine but also the car, then you get like absolutely staggering performance. Look at how much this thing can do with just 600 horsepower. I mean, at this point, 600 horsepower is pretty much your entry-level supercar, right? It's a McLaren 12C, it's, the Lamborghini Huracan and Audi R8 V10 Plus make 610, fair enough. It's pretty much, it's become the standard these days. But now let's look and clock the 0 to 300 kilometers an hour time. There we go. That's 300 kilometers an hour right there. 14.6 seconds. Not even a Veyron Supersport can match that. And again, this is coming out of a 4-cylinder engine. And not to mention the fact that this is more economical than a Veyron as well. Yeah, you get the point. And this car comes in 2 flavors: speed, which is what we're looking at right now, for higher top speed, but not necessarily aggressively tuned for track performance. Don't be fooled by that though. Even this version will go around Laguna Seca rather quickly. $130.27, that would be 3rd place of all production cars tested there so far. Just behind the Viper ACR, the new one, and the Porsche 918, but ahead of the McLaren P1. Then again, this cost $226,959 dollars. It will probably be rounded down a little bit to $225,000, but you get the idea. It costs it costs a quarter of the 918 or the P1, and yet its performance just on par with those. The other version of this is the track version, which has a lot higher potential for track times. It's got a much more aggressive aero tuning most of all, and a slightly revised suspension tuning as well. But the big deal is, of course, the aerodynamics. You see, we no longer have a fully clad under tray with 0 downforce here. Instead, we have a downforce under tray with 90 downforce and more aggressive front wing angle as well. Again, while this is a lot more tweaked towards lap times, don't think this is a slow car flat out. It will still do 325 kilometers an hour, 202 miles an hour. But now let's see what this does around Laguna Seca. $128.04. That's lap record. Both of these cars are supposed to be sold, yeah. And also, this car, the track version, is, as I mentioned, it is meant to perform on a track, and it's built to break 1 or 2 lap records. For example, that on the Green Hell. Currently, Porsche 918 657. Six minutes 57 seconds for the Porsche. And remember, this is a standing start. Come on. The Green Hell is just a really long track. It takes forever to load up. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole process of this, over 6 minutes of running this through. 6:53.9. Goodbye, Porsche. That's 3 seconds faster. And again, all that performance coming from a 4-cylinder engine, but it is extremely light and very aerodynamically tuned. And therefore it can do the things that it does. So what does this car cost? Excuse me, why is this so much cheaper? Why does this cost so much less? What did I do differently on this one than on the speed version? We have semi-slack tires here. I actually don't know what I did different. Maybe the standard springs are less expensive than the progressive springs, but that can hardly make like $26,000 of a difference. No, it won't. I don't know why the price gap is so significant. But the prices recently have been a little bit weird at times anyway. So maybe that's one more of those occasions where, you saw on the SL9 that the base version with the 6.5 liter V12 would cost 1.2 million, even though it had barely any quality sliders. And then the one with plus 15 everywhere cost 1.3 million, so hardly seems fair. I'm guessing this is one more of those occasions where, the prices are just a little bit buggy. That's okay. This car is still, let me put it this way: if somebody with a lot of money, like Bill Gates, came to me and offered me the resources in order to build one car out of all the cars I've ever created in automation, it would be this one. Why? Because it proves so many things at once, and that is that, the most important lesson learned with this car is that is that downsizing the engine and the entire car is actually gonna elevate our performance levels overall. Despite the fact that 600 horsepower in supercar terms today doesn't sound like that much. You also gotta realize that in this case it only weighs 884 kilograms. That's about as much as a smart roadster, if not less. And it costs a quarter of the hybrid hypercars. And yet it delivers just as much performance, if not more. And that's the important takeaway there. So, yeah, of course, again, this is a purist car. You don't even get power steering. You don't get electric driver assist. I mean, you would get launch control though, because that does make sense on a car like this. It doesn't help in the game though. It doesn't do anything. But maybe what it would have is some sort of ECU programming that makes it so when you're in sport mode on the transmission, or manual mode on the transmission, and you hold the car with the brakes and hit the throttle, it would automatically always lock at like 6,000 RPM or something, and then when you release the brake, it'll launch with a sort of pseudo launch control that isn't actually in a separate device. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass at this point. Let me know what you think about this car. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like or a comment if you did. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.